Welcome to the Launch Family Podcast, where we make sense of modern parenting one real conversation at a time. I'm your host, Jessica Shelley, a former teacher and mom of six, here to help families cut through the noise and find what really works for their homes, their kids, and their lives. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Malorie Sanchez, a special education professional, future BCBA, and mom of two children on the autism spectrum. Malorie brings a unique and powerful dual perspective. She's a practitioner working in the ABA field, but she's also a parent walking this journey every single day. Malorie's mission is to empower working moms who are juggling it all and to remind them that perfect isn't the goal. It's about prioritizing connection, celebrating the small wins, and creating meaningful moments that matter. Today, we're getting real about parenting, neurodivergence, and building support systems that actually help. Malorie, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going this morning?
So great. I'm so excited to dive into this conversation, and your story is truly inspirational as well. So I can't wait to give our listeners a little bit of background. But as we get started, can you tell us a little bit about your background in psychology and special education and how you found your way into the world of ABA therapy?
Yeah, of course. I always knew I was interested in learning about other people. I always was that observant kid, growing up at recess and everything like that. I kind of hung back and watched how other people did things, and I always had an interest in learning about how other people acted and behaved. And I stumbled into my first psychology class when I was actually my senior year in high school. And I remember taking the class and it just kind of really opening my mind into how much of a science there was and how much research there was into how people think and do the things they do. And so that really kind of started my interest into it. So when I went to college, I had a roommate who was majoring in psychology, and I kind of one night she was studying for an exam, and I kind of just started kind of looking through her textbooks and everything and being like, you know what? Like this is just, I don't know, it was interesting to me, and I really I got hooked. And so I took a couple of courses, and before I knew it, I changed my major to psychology. I ended up with a Bachelor of Science in Psychology from Colorado State University. Because I just, like I said, I just really, really loved the science, the research, the history. Um, I mean, there's so much out there. It was really cool to really kind of learn everything.
Yeah, and then you mentioned that you started working in ABA actually before you found out that your children were then diagnosed. So how did that unique journey kind of unfold for your family?
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned that, because most people, when they find out that I work in ABA and they know my kids, they're like, "Oh, you work in the field because your kids are autistic." And I was like, "Well, it actually happened it kind of happened opposite." So um one day we were looking at moving back to Colorado. We live in the Denver area, and I just typed in Bachelor of Psychology, and before I knew it, there was an ABA clinic that had a job ad for a behavior therapist working with kids with autism. And I was like, okay, like I've worked with kids, my entire career has been working with kids. I feel like this was something that I could learn how to do. And so, I kind of shot my resume out in the dark and not really hoping for anything. And before I knew it, I had a job offer like a week later from the company. A couple weeks later, we moved back. I started my first position as a behavior technician at an ABA clinic. And that's where I really learned the world of ABA. Up until 2019, I had no idea it even existed. I had never heard the term before. I don't recall ever hearing it in my undergrad. So it really was a whole new world to me, and how the science of ABA really just worked with these kids, and just the way they were learning and gaining skills and learning how to talk and learning how to do things for themselves. And I was like mind blown just watching all this unfold in front of my eyes. And so it was really, really cool to watch.
And then what has that been like now balancing work in the field and then also now your role as a parent raising two neurodivergent kids? Like tell us a little bit about your day to day.
Sure. So it really took a couple of years. When I started at ABA, my kids were really little. I think they were about maybe 4 and 2 at the time. So they were really young. And about a year into working in ABA, I had just started grad school. COVID hit. This was 2020. And my son was 3. And I kind of started noticing um, him stemming, some scripting. He was already behind with gross motor skills and that kind of stuff. That was already new and apparent, or that was already apparent and stuff anyway. But just noticing some stuff, and I was like, I think he might be autistic. And I remember bringing it up to my husband and bringing it up to family members, and they're like, I don't think so. I think, you're just saying that because you work in ABA. And I was like, well, I think it's because I work in ABA that this is why I'm noticing, the symptoms and everything. And so about a year later, when he was 4, I went ahead and I kind of followed my intuition, and I went ahead and got him assessed, and lo and behold, he was level 2. He still is level 2, diagnosed level 2 autism. And yeah, got him started in ABA. He went to ABA for a year, for his preschool year when he was 4 to 5. And I mean, he's in 2nd grade now and he's thriving. Just seeing how much he has learned and how much he has overcome. And then my daughter, when she was about 7, and it's harder with girls, because they mask so much more. Uh, and so it's a lot harder for those symptoms to kind of come out. They're not as overt a lot of times with most girls as it is with boys. But I still kind of had an inkling with her that she might be as well. So we went ahead and got her assessed as well. And she's level 1 autism and ADHD as well. So yeah, it kind of worked out backwards. I kind of stumbled into the field first, and then my kids got diagnosed after. So yeah, it's funny how that works.
We're meant to be in the field so that you could better, support your children too. Like,
I guess so.
um, I think that, there's a lot of, information out there when it comes to, autism and things to look for in your child. And it can feel a little overwhelming. Like if you start to notice something, what is that first step that you take? Who do you call first if you have a suspicion that maybe I need to get this checked out a little bit more? What was that process like for you? What were some of those first steps?
It really is different for every parent, and it really also depends on too, kind of fortunately and unfortunately, depending on location and where they live, because some areas, some bigger cities are going to have a lot more resources and a lot more out there, versus if you're rural or you're kind of in the middle of nowhere, or there's just not as many resources. But I'm no medical professional, but I always suggest speaking with your child's pediatrician or doctor first, and just kind of bringing up um, kind of what you're noticing, maybe some symptoms, that kind of thing. Always talk it through with the doctor first. And a lot of times, a lot of the doctors and pediatricians, even though they are not trained in ABA, they do have resources, they do have brochures, or pamphlets of a lot of companies in the area, that they can refer out to as far as somebody to look into assessing and diagnosing your child, if you'd like to go that route.
Yeah, yeah. And then as you mentioned, like the resources, right, in the community, is there any for like those families that may not have access within their like general area? Is there any online resources that come to mind that they could maybe look into, or maybe Facebook groups or something like that? Where else can they kind of build community or find high quality information, in your opinion?
Sure. I would say Facebook groups are a big one. There are a lot of, I can't think of any of like the exact names off the top of my head, but there are a lot of Facebook groups for parents out there with kids that are on the spectrum, and definitely reach out on there. Maybe put a post, or maybe ask to speak to a moderator of one of those groups and kind of explain like where you're from, what your situation is. And somebody there is always, always willing to talk with you and kind of guide you through the process as well. So yeah, I definitely recommend looking up at Facebook groups. On LinkedIn, there's a lot of like coaches and ABA professionals like myself and others out there that you are always more than welcome to. I mean, my message box is always open, so you're always welcome to message me, and I can do my best to point you in the right direction as well.
I love that. Yeah, it really is like that community piece, right? Like we're moms, we need that mom community, but also if we have
Yes.
children that have neurodivergence, it feels maybe a little bit more isolating, or you're trying to navigate things that maybe your local mom group hasn't gone through. So being able to leverage technology to connect and learn more, but also try to avoid the overwhelm of information that's out
Yes.
there.
Yes, it is easy to get overwhelmed. Always make sure to just take a deep breath, take a step back if you're feeling overwhelmed. Maybe call up your best friend and kind of have a vent session if that's what you need to do, before you kind of do anything. Cause it can and it will get overwhelming. There is so much out there, and it's the blessing and the curse of our digital age, right? There's so much out there, but at the same time, it's like, where do I start? Where do I begin? Who do I talk to? So, kind of circling back, I always say to talk to your child's pediatrician or doctor first, because they will be able to refer you to somebody in your area that can better assess your situation and give you a diagnosis if that's what you're seeking.
Perfect. I love that. Really clear action step if
Yes.
question or anything else. How has your role of being in the ABA clinic also been influenced by your role as a parent?
It's funny because I feel like I kind of live it 24/7. Most people, they work in the ABA field. They clock in, they have their sessions with their kiddos, they clock out, they go home at the end of the day. Yeah, they might think about their patients or whatever, because we want them to learn and grow, and we have passion for what we do. But it's something that I definitely do live 24/7. There's a lot of things that I have learned over the course of my studies and completing my master's degree in special ed and ABA and everything, that I have incorporated into, our family life here at home. There's a lot of things my husband and do in ways that, we talk to our kids a certain way, or, um, unfortunately slash fortunately with our kids, they are kind of verbally prompt dependent on certain things. So even though, we have the same routine every morning and the same routine every night, it doesn't change. We still have to kind of prompt our kids, be like, okay, you got dressed. Now what's the next step? Oh, you got to brush your teeth. You got to brush your hair. Okay. Now you have to go, warm up your breakfast. Okay. Now you have to put your shoes on. So it really is something, that I've learned how to incorporate in my home life as well, to just kind of make the day to day, just run as smooth as possible.
For sure. It sounds like you're pulling a lot of different strategies in all the different parts of your day to support those little ones that are in front of you.
Yeah.
Why is it so important for families to feel empowered and not overwhelmed when navigating, the diagnoses or the interventions, or even just like this kind of daily life? Um,
Sure. I always tell people to trust their gut. You are the parent. You are your child's number one advocate first and foremost. Don't ever lose sight of that. You are your child's advocate. And yes, it's overwhelming. I always tell people all the time that even me, I'm learning to build the plane as I'm flying it in the middle of the air. Okay. Like there's stuff you're just going to have to kind of figure out as you go, and just follow that first step of talking to your parents, or I'm sorry, talking to your child's pediatrician or doctor, seeing if you need to get an assessment, seeing if you need to get a diagnosis. And then from there, it's like, okay, I live in this area. What resources are available to me? What community is available to me? And just kind of trying to find that community in your area of other parents and other groups that are going through the same things you're going through, because having a community really is something that is life changing, and it's something that I know I'm trying to build in my community. Some areas have a great community, a lot don't. So really just trying to find other people out there that kind of share similar life experiences as you, and just really kind of build each other up and help each other out as much as possible. It goes back to that old adage of it takes a village. It really, really does.
Yes, yes, and I think too, like, the whole point of this kind of conversation too is just to talk about it, right? Like, this is something that
Absolutely.
you're navigating as a parent. There's other parents who may be listening in that maybe at other parts of their journey, whether that's from, "Oh, man, I have a suspicion," to, "Okay, we've been living with this for the last 15 years," you know? So,
Yeah.
in your opinion, why is it crucial that parents share those resources, talk about their stories and strategies with each other? And, how can we maybe think about this as more of like a global movement towards, transparency and support, like this village, right? Like it can't just
Yeah.
restrict it to your local area.
Exactly. It comes down to there are millions of us. We're not a small number. So the more of us that can get out there, that can put ourselves out there, whether it's, joining a Facebook group, whether it's launching a podcast, whether it's launching a blog, whatever it is, um, tell your story. Tell your story. The more of us that are out there, the more of us that are telling our stories, the louder and the bigger and, the better it's going to be for all of us, because there will be somebody out there that it is going to resonate with you, and they're going to listen to your story and be like, oh my God, there's actually somebody out there that is walking the walk as I am. Like, I thought I was the only one. I thought I was the only one in the world. No, there's going to be somebody out there that's walking a similar walk as you, and finding those connections and finding those other people out there is going to be absolutely crucial in your journey.
Absolutely. I have, while my son doesn't have autism, he has ADHD. And when he was only 4 months old, he was diagnosed as failure to thrive. And we spent 3 weeks in the children's hospital. And I remember, like, as you're talking to doctors, as you're talking to
Yeah.
therapists, it just can feel so overwhelming because you're like, believing
Yes.
everything that they say, right? Like, you're like, I have no
Yeah.
idea. This isn't my background. What do I do? So I think that that's a huge testament, Mallory, to like the story that you're sharing today is, ask the questions. It can be overwhelming, but finding that community to kind of build you up and support you, even if it isn't
Absolutely.
talking about your child or a diagnosis, it's like,
Yeah.
please just meet for coffee and talk about the color of the sky today because
Yes. You're like,
so
I just need to get out of my own head and not think about this. And I just need a mom friend. Find that mom friend who's going to be there and is going to be your ride or die. You got to have those people to really help lift you up when you're struggling, because you're going to have your great days and you're going to have your struggle bus days just like everybody else.
yes, so true. And it is like that community and that village as you mentioned. As we kind of wrap up today, I want to take a quick minute. So for listeners, at Launch Family, we've created a parenting guide called Emmy. So you can think of her as your on-call support system for navigating modern family life. And moms can actually ask her anything from emotional challenges to school routines. So before we go, I want to share 3 questions that moms have actually asked and kind of get your take on some of those before we head out since you're in the trenches with them. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, the first question is, how do I know when to push for an evaluation versus wait to see? So maybe
Sure.
Molly, you could expand on what signs you would encourage parents to trust their instincts on, or maybe when to take that next step towards evaluation.
Yeah, sure. So research has shown that early intervention really is the key. The younger that children can receive any services that they might need, the better. So I always highly recommend the don't necessarily wait and see approach. I always recommend, if you have that gut feeling that your child needs to get assessed, go ahead and make that appointment. Um, get them assessed, get them diagnosed if they need to be diagnosed. And then that way you'll have that peace of mind. And that way, okay, once you have that diagnosis, then see what you need to do about getting them into early intervention, because a lot of ABA clinics, and I don't know if a lot of people that know this, there are some that are geared towards older kids, but the vast majority of ABA clinics really are geared towards those younger children, the 2 to about 7 or 8 year olds. So really getting in early and getting those early intervention services, the earlier the better, is going to be a bigger benefit, and you're going to see a lot more growth and skills come out of your child. So I always say the earlier the better.
That makes sense too. Like we think about, early education, even like kinder, first and second grade, like those are the
Yes.
foundations for what can be built. So early intervention
Yes.
makes sense so that by the time they get to middle school or high school, they'll have more tools in their tool belt to kind of pull from as they navigate, complex social situations as well. So
Absolutely. And especially too, if they have like more challenging behaviors and that kind of thing, if they're younger, it's going to be a lot easier to teach them other coping and language and communication skills to overcome those challenging behaviors versus if you have a kid that's 10, 12, 14 that has been in those challenging behaviors for years and years, it's going to take a lot longer and it's going to be a lot harder to kind of break those habits and learn new coping mechanisms for that child. So definitely, definitely, I highly, highly recommend, early intervention, the younger, the better.
I love that. Yeah, so helpful. Take the
Yeah.
take the step if you are suspecting.
Yes.
The second question is, I'm overwhelmed now after receiving my child's diagnosis. Where do I even start? So maybe, you know, you've gone to the pediatrician, you've gone to the specialist, you have the diagnosis. What do you recommend now?
Sure. So it really depends. A lot of the ABA clinics, some of them have their own in-house psychologists that do the assessment and do the diagnoses. So if you were lucky enough to end up in one of those, definitely seek out whatever company you utilize or that psychologist works under. But once you have that diagnosis from that psychologist or early childhood development, person, definitely ask them. They are going to have the resources. They're going to know what clinics are around you. They're going to know what the wait lists are like and that kind of thing. That's a lot of their job. So definitely reach out to the person that assessed and diagnosed your child because they're going to be able to tell you some specific clinics and stuff that are in your area. And then just reach out, cold call those clinics and reach out to them and kind of see, talk to them about like what their wait list is like, what kind of services they offer, how many hours you can get. Also contact your health insurance because they're going to be the ones that are going to be reimbursing and paying for the services. um I always recommend just calling whatever that 800 number is on the back of your insurance card and calling your insurance and kind of explaining the situation. And they have huge master lists of places in your area that they cover. And so just going from through your insurance as well would be highly recommended.
What about like that transition to school too? Like if you have the diagnosis, then how does that correspond over if they're going to public, private, or charter school?
Sure. So once you kind of have nailed down a school, you know which school you want your child to go to, definitely reach out to the school, to the registrar's office, set up a meeting and kind of explain the situation, explain who your child is, explain that you would like to set up an IEP meeting so that way you can kind of pull everything together. You can get all of your paperwork together for your child's assessment and diagnosis and you can get together with the school team, the school psychologist, if they have a BCBA, the school therapist, that kind of stuff. And they're going to be able to sit down and have a meeting with you and figure out what kind of services your child is going to need and be able to qualify for as far as services at the school themselves.
Yeah, yeah. Do you see that? I'm going to go off on a little tangent here real quick, but I just want to make sure too. Do you see the value in having that kind of wraparound support too? So if they're going to therapy, if they have support at school, and then of course you're kind of guiding the support at home as well. Are there any other like stakeholders that would be important to kind of loop into the kind of care plan, I guess, moving forward?
Sure. So definitely, it's always going to be whatever therapies they're getting, loop them in. Like I said, whatever school, you want them to go to, definitely loop them in because the more that they know about your child and your child's needs, the better equipped they are going to be able to help your child. And then also, if there's any other caregivers, like if there's any other family members, grandparents, babysitters, anything like that, definitely loop them in as well. Don't leave them out in the dark. So, if there's any other caregivers in your child's life that do spend a considerable amount of time with your child, definitely kind of loop them in into what's going on, what kind of therapies your child is receiving, and make sure that they kind of know so that there's certain things that they might be able to do during their time with your child as well.
That's great. I don't know. I don't think I would have thought about, oh yeah, the grandparents too,
Yeah.
you've got those strategies that they're working on that can help with like the reinforcement or even that kind of positioning towards positivity and support and empowerment versus feeling
Yeah.
like you're just kind of continuing the struggle. But our
Yeah.
last question is, is it normal to feel guilty, confused, or even grieve a little when you get the diagnosis? So maybe you could delve
Yes,
into all.
absolutely. There is nothing not normal about that. You're gonna feel all the feelings. Even years into this, such as people like myself that have been doing this for years, I'm still guilty every day. It's that mom guilt that it's that mom heart, mom guilt that just never goes away. And that's okay. It's okay. Like I said, make sure that your mama heart is doing self care. Do something for yourself, whether it's getting your nails done, whether it's going for a walk with your dog, whether it's just sitting out in the sunshine for 20 minutes. Do something for you every day, even if it's just 15 minutes, to sit and read a chapter of a book. I don't care what it is. Take that moment for you, because if your cup is not full, you're not going to be able to pour into your child's cup or anybody else's cup. So definitely, definitely, definitely do that self care. I cannot stress that enough. Um, if you feel like you don't have time, find a way to make time, even after your kids go to bed, take that 10 minutes and just breathe, do whatever you got to do. To have those few moments. And yes, definitely grieve, definitely feel all the feelings, but don't let that overtake um what you're trying to do. And what you're trying to do is to provide the best life and get your child the services that they need to succeed in the way that they will be able to at some point. So that's, as long as you're doing that, you are doing great.
Oh, Mallory, thank you so much for the
Absolutely.
insights and like your heart just pouring out today. The journey that you've had, it reminds us that real parenting isn't about perfection, right? Like that kind of grieving process too. It's about the persistence and compassion and
Yes.
finding the strength in the community around you. For our listeners, if you found today's conversation helpful, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and stay connected. We'll include all the ways that you can find and follow Mallory in the show notes as well. And remember, you don't have to walk this road alone, whether you're navigating a new diagnosis, balancing a busy life, or just trying to be a little better today than you were yesterday. You're doing more than enough. Until next time, stay strong, stay real, and stay connected.